Hello, friends. This is Dr. Vijay. Welcome to the podcast on health and wellness. This week, we are going to talk on a more fascinating topic that is about minimal invasive surgery. As the old age adage goes, the bigger the incision, the bigger the surgeon. It has actually morphed into smaller the incision for a laparoscopic procedure makes bigger the surgeon. But if this has been translated into brain surgeries, which we call as neurosurgery, that would be even more fascinating and would even make the surgeon much more bigger. So we have with us a very young and a talented neurosurgeon from Hyderabad, Dr. Yellanki Karthik, to speak more on this topic. Hi, Dr. Karthik. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Vijay. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Fine, thank you, Vijay. It gives me immense pleasure to do a podcast with you.
Thank you so much, Karthik. So, Karthik, let us start a topic on minimally invasive neurosurgery. So, as this topic and neurosurgery is little difficult for common person and even general practitioners to understand, so let us keep as simple as possible. So, what's minimally invasive neurosurgery?
See, minimally invasive neurosurgery is an emerging specialty in the contemporary neurosurgery, whereby we use a shortest track through a small incision and get the pathology excised in the safest way possible.
Yeah. So that's really nice that even with a very minimal incision, we are entering into the brain and excising the pathology out. So I would like to know what are the neuro conditions that can be treated by this procedure?
So Vijay, using this technique, we can excise a number of pathologies in the brain. For example, I can tell you in the pituitary region, we can have a tumor-like condition of pituitary adenoma. Pituitary adenoma can be excised through the transnasal route through endoscope or through microneurosurgery, whereby we enter the sphenoid sinus and then the base of brain and remove the pituitary tumor. Also, other tumors like craniopharyngioma can also be removed through this route. And when coming to any lesion in the brain parenchyma, which is deep seated, we are nowadays using a new technique called as stereotaxy. Stereotaxy is nothing but we fit a three-dimensional frame to the brain, then take images in the CT and build up a 3D image of the brain, localizing the pathology using the XYZ axis. And then using a small needle, we'll enter the brain and take the biopsy. So this stereotaxy is a newly emerging technique for establishing the diagnosis, especially by pathology in the deep-seated tumors of the brain. So this has actually, advanced the treatment of some difficult tumors which are deep-seated by establishing the biopsy, and if they are radiosensitive, we can directly give radiotherapy to them.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Stereotactic.
And also, yes, stereotactic. This is the stereotactic brain biopsy, and also, common conditions like facial neuralgia, trigeminal neuralgia. See, trigeminal neuralgia, the facial pain which you have on around the eye, below the eye, on the cheek. This can also be treated by minimally invasive neurosurgery, because in the posterior part of the brain behind your ear, we can give a small incision, do a keyhole craniotomy, and separate the fifth nerve, the trigeminal nerve, from the superior cerebellar artery, which is the usual culprit, compressing this nerve and giving rise to facial neuralgia.
Okay.
So these are the extended spectrum of minimally invasive neurosurgery. We can also use this techniques to remove tumors in the posterior fossa. Also, like in the CP angle, we can use them and remove them with ease. And ultimately, one more important thing we need to remember here is intrafacial nerve monitoring while removing acoustic neuroma, and also, for example, any tumor in the eloquent areas of the brain, we need to monitor the physiology, like facial nerve monitoring and intraoperative. When you're removing a tumor near the motor cortex, we have to, it's like awake craniotomy. So all these techniques, we can, have optimized the usage of minimally invasive neurosurgery to remove whatever possible can be removed through that route. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So there are multiple number of neuro conditions which can be treated by it, as you say. So
Yes.
what are the advantages of conventional neurosurgery? Like how should the patient should understand whether he should go for a conventional one?
Advantages. Yeah. See, it's a straightforward point. The thing is, we are taking a small incision. Okay. Also, we'll do a small craniotomy. So when you are doing a small craniotomy, we'll have less brain retraction. So less brain retraction means less post-op edema, then also less post-op pain to the patient. Okay, and also we'll have an early recovery of the patient and early discharge of the patient. So these are the few advantages of minimally invasive neurosurgery over the conventional neurosurgery. Yeah.
Right.
So these are the advantages.
And yeah. So the most common thing as a postgraduate, while we were doing our general surgery post-radiation, we always used to see in every night duty one head injury. So does minimal invasive neurosurgery have a role in treating those patients?
This is a good question, but answer is no, because in head injuries, we don't know to what extent the brain has been damaged, first point.
Right.
And second point, let us say there's a depressed fracture. You don't know to what depth the bone has gone and how long the dura has been, how much length of dura has been, ruptured. So the point here is we need a wide exposure for head injury, as wide as possible, as far as you see the normal tissue. Right. So in head injuries, there is no role for minimally invasive technique. We have to be clear, and everything has to be well defined. Yeah, that is the point.
So in the abdomen, when we do a laparoscopic surgery, we fill in the gas and then create the pneumoperitoneum. So what does it actually take in case of neurosurgery in brain?
So you mean to say, how do you
like the space? How is the space created? Kind of.
See, ultimately, it is a strong anatomical knowledge that we make use of. So that is the investment which we make as a neurosurgeon in practicing minimally invasive neurosurgery. So ultimately, even when we the critical any tumor in the critical areas, like for example, you have an aneurysm. Aneurysm is nothing but a small bleb in the intracranial blood vessel. Okay. So even nowadays, that intracranial aneurysm, usually we do the treatment for that is clipping. It has a neck, and over the neck it has a fundus. So point is, fundus is the most vulnerable part of the aneurysm, and there is always a possibility for it to rupture because of the pressure of the blood in that blood vessel. Okay. Right. So this I'm briefly telling you just because you should have an idea. So now coming to the aneurysm, these, for example, anterior circulation aneurysms, we can approach them through a small incision in the eyebrow. Okay. So using a small eyebrow incision, we can just retract the frontal lobe, reach the anterior circulation, and clip it. So this is using, for example, using this technique, we make use of just a strong anatomical knowledge, how to encounter the right part and to excise, or for example, clip the aneurysm in the right possible way after properly skeletonizing it through almost, how much ever possible vision you have, not to again take a advantage, or to misadventure into a blind area. You should be very careful, and make the best use of the resources you have in dealing with the pathology. Yeah.
Right. Really nice. So apart from understanding the anatomy and having a good grip over anatomy of the brain, so are there any other technical challenges while performing the minimally invasive neurosurgery?
See, even this minimally invasive neurosurgery, though we are doing it in the best possible way for the patient, like small incision, small craniotomy, it does not get away, with just like that. We have technical challenges even in minimally invasive neurosurgery. For example, the pituitary tumor, which I have told you, we enter through the nose, enter the sphenoid, and then open the dura and remove the tumor. And after removing the tumor, it's very difficult at that point to put a stitch. So what we usually do is we take the adipose tissue from the abdomen and we pack it there and put some glue and do the nasal packing, which we remove after 2 days. So we do so much even after removing the tumor just to prevent the CSF leak, because CSF leak can cause infection, then it can land into meningitis. Ultimately all the effort will go into waste.
True.
Okay. So we take utmost attention in making sure that we do anything completely, up to even the last point, so that we prevent any sort of complication.
True.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. And also, like as I told you, let us take as one tumor of the motor cortex. There's a tumor in the motor cortex which is little subcortical, which you cannot see on the cortex. So now we are using the latest technology called as neuronavigation, with the help of which we can assess the tumor, or image guidance. This is nothing but taking the help of image guidance real time in the operation theater itself. This will help us to navigate exactly where the tumor is in real time in the operation theater itself. That is the advantage of neuronavigation. Using this, we locate the tumor, we locate the tumor, and then we perform this case as the awake craniotomy. We make the patient is mildly sedated, but he responds to us, and we make sure that we take we mark the motor cortex is identified. Then we'll speak to the patient, ask him to close the fist, and we'll just navigate through the tumor and remove it, and make sure that not even is even minimal of his motor power is diminished in his upper limb or lower limb. So there are technical challenges which we look into at large, so that we are comfortable through the surgery and come out of it comfortably.
True. That's a really challenging procedure, because even a minor mistake here and there would end up in a major morbidity for the patient, right?
Exactly. So that is why we take utmost care. And an evolution of latest technology has helped the minimally invasive surgery in one way.
Right. That's good. So, as you have already mentioned that you cannot treat head injuries with minimally invasive neurosurgery, are there any other conditions that cannot be treated?
Yes, there are a few conditions, where minimally invasive neurosurgery, is not appropriate. For example, large tumors where you need resection of the tumor along with a 2 centimeter margin, which cannot be easily accomplished with a minimally invasive neurosurgery. You have to go for an optimal craniotomy and a good resection. So that things cannot be done with minimally invasive neurosurgery. Also, fibrous tumors, like let us say there is a fibrous tumor in pituitary area. That is again, you cannot approach it through the transnasal route, because the fibrous tumor means there is a possibility that it might have attached strongly to the base of brain. Also, it might have encased the carotids. So while there is every possibility that you might injure the carotid while they are doing such a tumor through a transnasal route. So it's very, very important to pre-operatively, evaluate the patient with a cranial pathology or spinal pathology, and to make sure that if minimally invasive neurosurgery is appropriate to that patient.
Okay. So the case selection is very important.
Very, very, very important.
So all the questions of mine are almost revolving around neurosurgery. So can you just give us a brief idea on what is minimal invasive spine surgery, which is being famous these days?
Definitely. Now, actually, it has gone to such an extent that we are doing the spine surgery without even a stitchless spine surgery. Nowadays it has come, it has it evolved to such a stage. We are not putting even a stitch, just a small incision, micro incision. So it has its strong place here also. Even in spine, the minimally invasive surgery has a very good role. The advantage is being here. We are, when we enter the spine, here we are not cutting the muscle like in conventional procedures. When we reach the spine, we usually cut the muscle, but here we are just retracting. So-called descanso technique, or using a tubular tubular retractor. We are just retracting the muscle than cutting. So that is one important advantage. Also, the offending pathology like the disc, which is sitting on the nerve root or compressing the nerve root, can be focally removed rather than disturbing the architecture over there and taking a bigger incisions. We can directly remove the offending agent. Yeah. Also, the patient will have less post-op pain. Then using even this minimally spine surgery, we can remove even tumors. Tumors of the spine can also be removed with this minimally invasive technique. And of late, we have been doing even spinal fixations through minimally invasive neurosurgery. We are putting percutaneous screws. So even spine surgery also has evolved very greatly over the last few years, especially when the post-op pain and the post-op stay of the patient is very much reduced. Even the patient is going happily, very happily at much less expected time, than conventional procedures. Yeah.
Right. Ultimately, it's the happy patient with less morbidity is our success. I think
Right,
minimally invasive
right.
surgery is actually a boon for the patients as well as the surgeons. So, how do you see its future in India?
It's rapidly evolving branch, and the emerging fine equipment and instruments and the sound usage of latest technology has made the minimally invasive neurosurgery little easy. So so nowadays most of the patients are opting for a small incision surgeries, and it also has a good cosmetic result, especially on young people, a young female. Most of them, they want a very small incision. It's just like it's just they see that plastic surgery component here also, so that's very important. And it is also in a way reducing the morbidity of the patient. As as you also know that in neurosurgery, every 1 mm is of strong matter. Every 1 mm counts. So we make sure we do the best to the patient in the minimally invasive technique.
Right.
So this is
It's
it.
like just standing on the top of a cliff. On either side, you would land up in danger. Very precise.
Exactly. It's very important. So that's what I'm saying. Strong anatomical knowledge, it is the strongest foundation for a minimally invasive neurosurgeon. So, for example, it's the same. It holds good even in other branches also. So this is ultimately when you want to make sure that you want to explore your branch or explore the knowledge or give the benefits of science to the patients, you have to have a strong anatomical knowledge.
Right. Very well put, Dr. Karthik. So it's really nice talking to you on this interesting topic. Hope you have also enjoyed, and I think we can come back with more few topics which do matter for the general public. So what do you say?
Definitely. I'm always with you, Vijay. It was a great pleasure joining you here on this.
Thank you so much, Dr. Karthik. So that's all, my friends, for this week. Next week, again, we shall catch up with a good topic and a great discussion. Till then, stay home, stay safe, and bye-bye.